welcome to Build Series. I'm HuffPost Lee Blickley, and it's hard not to notice Sydni Suini these days. The young actor has been in everything from Everything Sucks and The Handmaid's Tale to Sharp Objects, and has stood out in each role she's taken on. Now she's in Euphoria, a show focused on a group of high school students as they grapple with issues of drugs, sex, and violence. Sydni is here to talk about her character, Cassie Howard, but first, let's take a look at a clip.
What?
Nothing.
Why do you keep staring at me?
It's right up there.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Kind of spaced out for a second. I wasn't being weird, was I?
No, you're being cute.
Listen, I don't want to sound corny or whatever, but you are literally the most beautiful girl I've ever seen.
Let's welcome Sydni Suini. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I have to say, I've been super impressed by what I've seen from you in your career so far, and I really want to get to know you a little bit more. So can you tell me and us about how you got started in acting and how you knew you wanted to be an actress?
Well, I always knew, but my parents never believed me. It was like I wanted to be a princess in some fairy tale land, and they're like, this is not possible. And I grew up in a small town, so it was like this crazy idea that would never come true. And when I was about 12 years old, this small movie came to town, and I found out about it at school. And I asked my parents if I could audition. They're like, no, what are you talking about? So I created this 5-year business plan presentation of what could happen if they let me audition for this movie. And they were like, okay, maybe she's a little more serious than we thought. And I ended up booking it.
It's amazing. What was this movie?
I honestly don't even remember. It was just like this it was like a funny horror indie movie, and I fell in love with being on set. My parents saw how happy I was about it and dedicated, and they're like, okay, maybe we should support her.
So where were you living at this time? Where did you grow up?
Spokane, Washington.
Okay, so it was a small town. So then did you move to LA or New York when you decided to...
We would bounce back and forth between Seattle for a little bit because there was like this commercial area, and then we started going to Portland for a little bit more, and then finally went down to LA for pilot season.
That's amazing. And so you didn't have any training, it was just kind of within you?
Just did it.
That's amazing. That you already knew that you wanted. Were you, as a kid, were you imaginative, and did you...
I had a crazy imaginary world. I mean, I would have different sections in my backyard be different worlds, and different rooms in my house be different places, and hopefully I wasn't crazy, but I had a lot of imaginary friends.
Great. So what have you learned so far about being in the business? Because I'm sure your first foray into pilot season had to be really interesting and sort of scary, I'm sure.
It was really scary. I mean, it's a completely different world, growing up in a small town and then going to this huge city with all these people from all over the world. And you're kind of thrown into this entire industry as a young kid, and you had to be an adult. Mm-hmm. So I learned very fast the importance of being able to handle yourself in a room with grown men, and how to handle yourself in a situation like this, and how to speak properly. So it was a quick learning experience.
Yeah. So did you book Everything Sucks pretty shortly after you started going?
No, it took a few years. I went to LA when I was like 14, and I didn't get Everything Sucks till I was 18 and a half. So I had a few years of indies and guest star roles and co-star roles, and yeah.
And so how was it when you actually did book Everything Sucks and it was on Netflix and it was this big platform? Did you notice right away that, oh, like this has maybe propelled me a little bit further into what I want to do?
Oh, definitely. What's interesting actually is I booked Sharp Objects first, cool. And I was filming Sharp Objects for a couple months, and then I booked Everything Sucks, and I had to work out with Netflix and HBO, like, how do I film both of these at the same time? And Everything Sucks ended up coming out before Sharp Objects. Okay. And that was just a crazy, fun experience. I mean, everybody loved Emmeline and Kemmeline, and I really missed that storyline.
And then, of course, Sharp Objects, you were in, I think it was an episode, right? But you were acting across from Amy Adams, which is pretty amazing. What was that experience like, and what did you take away from working with her?
I mean, she's an amazing actress. I've always looked up to her. She's an amazing role model. She's a mother, and just being able to sit there and learn from her, watching her act, and listening to her speak about just her life in general was amazing, better than any acting class you could ever ask for. And we just would dive into our characters, and sometimes Jean-Marc Vallée wouldn't call cut, and we would just be living in these scenes without dialogue and just continue it. And I love when you're able to do that with an actor and just work off of one another.
Yeah, because that's his style too. Vallée likes to just keep continuing, right?
And many
shoot.
times you don't know where the camera is because he likes natural lighting, so there's no equipment really anywhere, and you're just in this world and you don't know where the camera is sometimes, and you're just living it. And I love when an actor is given that capability.
Yeah, and Alice that was a dark role to take on, and you've been really brave with the choices that you've made. Is that something that you like to do, is kind of test your own limits, but maybe experiment a little bit with the roles you take? Everyone is a bit different.
I definitely like to change it up. I like characters that scare me and are completely different than myself because I like a challenge. And I like being able to learn and experience about these different characters because I feel like that gives me the ability to connect to other people in the world. And I've always wanted to be there for others through characters, even though they might not make the right choices.
Yeah, I know. I felt that way too with The Handmaid's Tale was such an interesting character and such a show kind of the moment where it's talking about a lot that's going on in the world, unfortunately. What was it like, though, to be in Eden's head? Because she was placed like in this situation of this dystopian...
She was a true believer. I mean, she grew up in this dystopian society and she didn't know anything else. So it was really interesting seeing fans hate her, but I felt so much sympathy for her because she didn't know what she was doing wrong. She didn't know what she believed in was wrong because that's all she knew. And sometimes you look at that in the world, like some kids grow up a certain way, and like you have to put yourself in their shoes to sometimes understand the way they think. And so for Eden, it was just this world that's all she knew, and she didn't know anything else.
Yeah. And what was for you, there was great reaction from your final episode on Handmaids. What was it like to kind of be at the center of some of that conversation for a little while? Is it powerful to be a part of a show that gets people talking?
Of course. I mean, you never know what people are going to think of your character or how they're going to take it. So when everybody started actually feeling for Eden, and in the end they were like, oh my gosh, we loved Eden and we feel so sorry for her. That was such a powerful point for me because at first everybody hated her and I was like, oh gosh. And then having a character that people fall in love with, it's really cool to have an arc like that.
Yeah. And so when after Handmaids did you book Euphoria? Was it kind of like because you did Sharp Objects? Was HBO kind of aware of who you were for the show?
No, I mean, I think that Sam, our creator, he looked at everybody. It didn't matter what you've been in, who you are. He just wanted to find the people who were right for the characters. And I actually put myself on tape for it. Oh, cool. And I got it off my tape. I didn't have to go in again. And we filmed the pilot. And then I went and filmed Big Time Adolescence. And I found out on the set of Big Time that we got picked up for the first season, and we went straight into filming it.
And did you know that when you sent your tape in, was it for Cassie Howard? Or
it was for Cassie.
Okay. What was it about Cassie that sort of drove you to try out for her and to play her on the show?
Just reading the pilot alone. I mean, she's not in much of the pilot, so I had to look at like the whole picture of the entirety of the show. And I fell in love with the rawness and the situations and the emotions that all these characters go through. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of this show.
Yeah, so what this show is, it's a really deep look into high school, and it kind of touches on a lot of things that not everybody talks about with sex and drugs and all of that, what we don't see as parents or, when I look back on my time in high school. What did that kind of drive you to do this show? Is just it was a really raw look at this group and kind of touching on topics that not many people...
I mean, I always tend to find things that scare me. And I think that there hasn't been a TV show that has really represented a real look at growing up today. And I wanted to be a part of something like that. And Cassie, when I booked it, I was speaking to Sam about my character. I was like, what else happens to Cassie? Like, I want to know the full arc of her. And when he told me her arc, I absolutely fell in love. And I can't say it right now because it hasn't come out yet. But it was just a very powerful thing for me. And I definitely wanted to bring that to life.
Yeah. Because what we've seen of Cassie so far is, you know, she's sweet and she's a popular girl. She's a cheerleader. So what else is there to discover with Cassie for us as a viewer? Because right now, yeah, we haven't seen everything, and I know you can't give too much away.
Yeah, I mean, what I really loved about Cassie is if many people would read the page, you'll see the stereotypical, oh, she's a blonde, sexual, popular teenage girl. But really, there's so many layers to her, and she's gone through so much that you'll see in her episode, because every episode's a different character. So in episode 7, it's Cassie, and you get to see where she came from and her history and her life, and you start to realize that there's way more that she is dealing with. And I wanted to have a character that has so many layers, like Eden or Alice or Emmeline, and I was really drawn to that.
You can't